Before I start this video, let me just tell you a little something. This channel's whole purpose is to broadcast and promote my eBay shop, RedMana Madness. Every card you see in this video, you will see in eBay. I do my research analysing the demand to know a good price point. I work out to find the right price so you can get the best price. And it doesn't end there. I also sell bundles and accessories essential to your MTG plays. So after you watch this video, of course, head over to my eBay shop at www.ebay.co.uk/str/RedManaMadness or click in the link in the description below. Now, let's start the video. Hello there guys and girls, welcome to a new episode of RedMana Madness. We have got a brand new deck tech video, something that I came across during the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, finding this cute little creature here, how do you pronounce it, Zoyowa or Zoyowa, damn it. You know what I'm like guys, I absolutely butcher these names, but I think it's Zoyo, oh damn it. Zoyowa. Zoyowa. Yeah, this little commander, it's a red and a black, 2-mana costing, Rakdos commander. A little bit different to how I usually play, so basically this is how he works. He's a 2-2 with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, each opponent may discard a card or sacrifice a permanent, and the Lava Tongue deals 3 damage to each opponent who didn't. So I quite like the idea of this, of maybe putting a bit of pressure on my opponents, forcing them to either discard or sacrifice, and then hopefully with this deck I would be benefiting as much as I can from that. With this deck approach, I kind of went in 3 different directions. I quite like the idea of the damage that he does with the 3, and I've got a few opportunities in this deck where I could boost that 3 to maybe 4 or even 6 damage, where I could double or triple the damage that he does. You know, really giving my opponents a decision to really discard a really good card or sacrifice a really good creature rather than taking the 6-9 damage or whatever. I do like the idea of maybe turning this into a sort of spell slinger deck where I cast lots of instants and sorceries to have different effects, where I do 2 damage, 1 damage to each of my opponents, and then using the descend ability where I cast that spell, descend as the additional cost, have an effect, and then have an end step effect with that, and then hopefully benefit from it. So I have taken this deck in maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 different directions, and I think I need to fine tune this so it focuses on more one type of gameplay, so to speak. We'll get into that a little bit more as I show you the cards, but yeah, ultimately I've played a few games with this now. I've tested this out and showed some friends. A lot of the people did quite like the idea of this, and it did cause maybe a little bit of disruption in the gameplay. I didn't win any games, but it definitely caused a bit of nuisance, so to speak. You know, having to sacrifice creatures, having a choice to discard a card or take the 3 damage. Early games, everyone always chose the 3 damage. They didn't want to get rid of anything good. But when times got a little bit tougher, it did definitely, you know, have an impact where they were, you know, sacrificing certain creatures as a result of it, which I thought was quite good. That was the goal that I wanted, so I was quite happy with that. It definitely lacked a bit of interaction in terms of like dealing with my opponent's board. You know, someone playing something quite big, I don't have anything to deal with it. You know, yeah, I might be able to force, you know, give them a choice to sacrifice, but they'll just take the 3 life rather than sacrifice their big creature. I needed a little bit more interaction where it would force them to, you know, make that choice, so to speak, maybe having a bit more removal. What I'll do is towards the end I'll show you a few wild cards that I'm very considering of adding in and replacing a few other cards for that reason, because it definitely lacked just a little bit of interaction in dealing with my opponents. But what we'll do is we'll go for the lands. If I'm not mistaken, I have a total of, was it 30 lands? I thought, considering my commander's only 2, and I don't think I've got anything massive, so to speak, in this deck. 1 or 2 cards that do cost a little bit, but I thought 30 lands might be enough. I get the feeling I might add one or two more, because I did have one game where I just wasn't drawing anything decent in terms of lands. But I've got, okay, yeah, so it's actually 33 lands. I can't count, as well as read English, which is probably really, really bad. So 33 lands. I do have a number of lands that help trigger the descend ability with my commander. So say, for example, the Hidden Necropolis and Hidden Volcano. Oh, sorry, let me bring them down so you can actually see the bloody cards. Forgive the glare. So yeah, Hidden Volcano, so it does come in tapped, but I get to discover and sacrifice this land, which obviously triggering my commander, so which is kind of good. So I've got a couple of lands that do that. Maybe too many, I'm not too sure, because I was thinking where I was struggling with my land bases and my mana curve, so to speak, having cards that constantly come in tapped, or sacrificing them or cycling them to trigger my commander. I was then without the land, so to speak. So I might take a few of these out, because I've got quite a few. I might take maybe 2 or 3 out to just have some regular lands in, so I got something to play, because I was finding myself just a little bit behind in 1 or 2 games. So the idea behind Echoing Deeps is, like, obviously where I'm putting a few cards into my graveyards, like the Smouldering Crater, Polluted Mire, Bog Wreckage is something I came across in my collection. It comes in tapped, but I tap for black, but just in case I don't have anything to trigger his Descend with my other cards, I could just use it with this, for example. Takenuma, sorry. This will end up in my graveyard, hopefully, and if I do, I could use the Echoing Deeps to make a copy of it. So that was the kind of reason behind there. Some cycling cards, because I discard it and draw a card, triggers the Descend. Field of Ruin, again, maybe destroy someone's shock land or something, for example, or if someone's got a really decent land, Rogue's Passage, for example, maybe, this again will trigger. Again, sacrificing, things like Myriad Landscape, the Gemstone Mine as well, will eventually trigger the Descend with that as well. And this is basically Field of Ruin as well, but it gives you a treasure token instead. So yeah, I got maybe a few of these. I'm not too sure maybe if I've got too many, because it does slow my gameplay down just a little bit. With the other lands, it's just regular basics. I was fortunate to pull Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth at some point in my life. That is actually a proxy. I don't have the original copy of that, because I need something like this to help with the land, so to speak, but I got a proxy. I don't have the money for that at the moment, and nor that I'm lucky to pull something like this. Yeah, the Surveil with this one as well helps with the Descend trigger. Leech-ridden Swamp. So this was kind of like the idea that I was telling you about. So where I just ping life to everyone, so each opponent loses 1 life. Again, you'll see some enchantments that I think I think it'll work. Where if I'm dealing non-combat damage, it does double or triple that instead. So I'm hoping, like, at will with my lands and my creatures and my spells and my commander, I can just be doing triple that damage rather than anything else. So that was the idea behind that. The idea, I guess the ultimate idea behind this deck is to not defeat my opponents through regular combat damage. It's to, like, drain them from life using other means. And this and my commander, and you'll see a few other enchantments and creatures, is the way I'll be doing it. And then the rest has just got some nice shiny lands. Just a regular mountain and swaps after that. So 33 lands is that. I thought it was 30 for some reason. I may have already added some lands at another point. Going to the usual, mana rocks, so to speak. I've got the Ragdoll Signet, Soul Ring, Command Sphere, and the Mind Stone. Gives me the little bit of card draw and the rocks to help ramp up a little bit as well. Maybe I got an Arcane Signet in my little wildcards box here that I was thinking of adding. Decide how I go with that. With the artifacts, I have a couple of I got the Tyran's Journal. So this one allows for the Descend. So I sacrifice another artifact or creature, hopefully trigger the Descend, draw a card, and maybe at some point, if, say, for example, I only have 1 card in hand or whatever, discard my hand and then transform the journal into I think it turns into a land, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so I may cast a creature spell from my graveyard this turn by tapping it if I do it into the battlefield with a finality counter, It's a vampire in addition to its other types. So if it dies, it gets exiled. So I get to have a little bit of graveyard recursion. I think that's one of the reasons I had that, because with the creatures, excuse me, that I'm playing, I'm going to be sacrificing them, and I would like to have them back. So I can either A, sacrifice them again, gain additional benefits, and trigger the descend, and obviously the second time round it won't trigger the descend because it goes into exile rather than anything else. Vat of Rebirth, so whenever a creature I control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on, remove 4, return a creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. So nice little graveyard recursion, you know, it only costs 1 as well, which is not too bad. I think if I'm going to be deliberately destroying or sacrificing my own creatures to reap rewards and benefits, I need to have a fair bit of graveyard recursion, and this was the reason why I added that in there. Tithing Blade as well, each opponent sacrifices a creature, you know, again, forces, you know, I like the way that it's only 2, and it forces everyone to sacrifice 1, it's quite nice. And then on the other side, it turns into another artifact. Yeah, when I craft with it for 5, at the beginning of my upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and I gain a life. So a little bit of life gain. Not too sure if it would be hugely beneficial, but again, that 1 damage coupled with a few little enchantment combos could turn into a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's 1 damage, and then if I descend, it could be potentially 4 damage to each opponent. It's just, yeah. Soul Guide Lantern, this is just for maybe a little bit circumstantial depending on what I'm playing, but you know, everyone has some sort of graveyard recursion, or they're doing something, the ability to maybe exile each opponent's graveyard at some point to really slow them down could be quite beneficial, so that's in there. Swiftfoot Boots, okay, this is more literally just to put on my commander. Like, if I do get this, goes on my commander, gives him a little bit of protection, stops people from targeting him to, you know, prevent that descend. Going into enchantments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 enchantments. That might be a bit too much. I'm tempted to take 1 or 2 out to, you know, for favors for something else. But Vampiric Rites, sacrifice a creature, gain the life and draw a card. That will probably stay in there. It's, again, kind of synergizes well with him. Triggers his descend. I draw a card. You need card drawing in Commander at the end of the day to get ahead of your opponents. The Canonizing Blood doesn't seem too bad at the beginning of the end step. If you descend at this time, put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control. I'm half and half on this. First, I thought this was a quite good idea because I will be descending often as possible. But the thing is, it's like I'm putting counters on a creature that I'm probably going to end up sacrificing at some point anyway, and I just feel like it's kind of pointless. I don't know. Maybe let me know what you think about this one. Like, you know, yeah, I've got like 2 or 3 creatures out, and I'm putting counters on them and stuff, but then in a turn or 2, I'm going to be getting rid of it to gain additional effects or benefits to, you know, trigger my commander. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Kind of like it. It might be half pointless. So that one is 1 card I'm thinking of getting rid of. Cruelty of Gix. So again, gets them to discard a card. I get the semi-tutor for a card, and the other one is I get to put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under my control. It most, you know, depends on my opponents. If they got something really big and tasty, I might take theirs and then use it a few times, then sack it. But again, a little bit of does a little bit of everything. This does, to be fair, you know, discard, tutor, and graveyard recursion. So I thought, you know, ticks kind of all the boxes, so to speak. Oversold Cemetery. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, which no doubt I will, I may return a creature card from the graveyard to my hand. So, you know, certain creatures that I'm going to want to replay over and over again, I felt like this would be a really good card to put in there. Okay, so Dictator of the Twin Gods was one of these ones that if you deal, if a source would deal damage to a permanent on the player, it does double to that instead. So the way I'm not too sure if loss of life counts as damage, like, because it's just, the card doesn't say deals 1 damage to target opponent, or, you know, each opponent, you know, loses 1 life. The wording is different, but I think if it says you lose 1 life and I gain 1 life, that, you know, that's the way it works. So I think obviously with my commander that works, it deals 3 damage. You know, it deals double that instead. So you know, the idea is if opponent says, yeah, no, I'll take the 3, I flash this in. No, you're taking 6. But with the wording with certain other ones, like say for example, coupled with the Court of Ambition, each opponent loses 3 life. If this is in, would they lose 6 instead? I might have to have someone confirm that with me. So this one, it's kind of like in the maybe pile, so to speak. only because I've yet to play this little combo to see if it would confirm or not. Like, would they lose? Like, say for example, the blade, Tiffith blade, or whatever it's called, um, tithing blade. You know, when I craft it, and then on my upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life, and I gain 1 life. Do they lose 2 life instead, or it doesn't count because it's not technically damage? So that's going in the maybe pile. Need to discuss it with a few people and talk, see what the ruling is on that. But yeah, Court of Ambition. Again, this is basically an enchantment version of my commander, so to speak. I become the monarch, so again, potentially the card draw. Might put a target on my head though. And beginning of my upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. Again, forcing that discard, slowing them down, or taking the life. Little bit of shenanigans there. And you never know, I might be the monarch and they lose 6 instead. So I quite like this card. That's definitely staying, I think. The Fiery Emancipation. If a source would deal damage to a permanent player, deals triple. So it's basically triple version of Dictate of the Twin Gods. Again, in the maybe pile because I'm just not too sure of the wording and the ruling on that. I'm hoping with certain things, like say for example, if it couples with this, Bastion Remembrance, when a creature you control died, each opponent loses 1 life. Is that technically damage?
Nope.
And if this was out, would that be 3 life? Yeah, I don't know. Need to find out. So create a token to sacrifice things. I know it won't trigger the descend, but just in case I'm low on resources and I don't want to sacrifice a good creature, I could sacrifice a token to still gain certain benefits from certain sorceries or creatures. It would still trigger other things. So that's the reason why this is in here. And Impact Tremors, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, I know this would trigger with Dictate of the Twin Gods or Fiery Emancipation. With some of the creatures, I will be creating maybe some tokens as well, and so hopefully drop a few creatures onto the battlefield to trigger that. So that's not too bad. Forgive the glare. I've got the window open. It's a nice sunny day, but I need the light, so to speak. But with these bloody sleeves, it's causing a bit of glare. So, instants of sorceries. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 instants of sorceries. So I don't know if that's a lot. I want to put more in because I like the idea with is when you see some of the creatures I have, they kind of gain benefits or something happens when I cast instants of sorceries. Being it's red and black, I kind of like the idea. So I'm semi-tempted to take a few cards out and add more in. I really can't decide what I want to do with it. But I got a tutor, Demonic Tutor. I pulled this on a Kamigawa set booster pack. Was really, really lucky with that, so I was quite happy with that. But everyone knows what that does. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. So it's quite nice. Demonic Tutor. Dark Deal is a draw card per se. Forces everyone to discard their hand and then draw that many cards -1. You'll see one of the reasons why I have a fair bit of forced discard as well, because I've got Tear Grid, the God of Fright, in here as one of my creatures. Again, she'll benefit off that, and the cards that they discard, I will get. Quite like that card that stays. Village Rites, so here we go. So an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Could be a token, could be one of the creatures. Triggers the descend. I draw 2 cards. So I draw 2 cards. Descend will happen at the end of my turn. My opponents pay for it. Unfortunately, I thought I had more than this. I've only got 2 instances where I have card draw. I most likely will need to add more and take something away. But I have Corrupted Conviction. Is basically Village Rites. Cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. So it's basically Village Rites. Not dead after all. I thought with this one it might be a little bit of shenanigans, so to speak. Like if a creature would enter the battlefield and have a ETB effect, and then I sack it, as a result, I could then maybe play this on that, so then, it hits the graveyard, then returns to the battlefield, and then has that ETB trigger again. I think a good example of that, I have the Fleshbag Marauder, I think it is, when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. I could sack the Marauder to itself, cast that on there, and then replay, and it enters, and everyone has to sacrifice another creature. So yeah, it's not too bad. That was the reason why I put that in there as a little mini combo, so to speak. Back for seconds. So this is the graveyard recursion. Got maybe a couple of these. 5 graveyard recursion spells. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to this hand. If it was bargained, which I might end up doing because I get to sacrifice something, trigger, and I can return a card of 4 left to the battlefield instead. So that's not too bad. Nice little graveyard recursion. Plus it will help trigger the descend on my guy here. Mill 2 cards, potential graveyard descend trigger, and then return 2 creature cards from the graveyard to your hand. Victimize, choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature, so descend trigger, and then return those cards to the battlefield tapped. So that's quite nice. And then a nice little cheap one, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's only costs 1. And then corpse churn, again, descend trigger chance, and then graveyard recursion. Smallpox is a naughty little card, you know, looks quite naughty. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, and then sacrifices a land. So it will definitely trigger my commander here. Hopefully it'll slow my opponents down enough where I get to do something as well. So that's kind of naughty. Abrade, destroy someone's Soul Ring with that, or maybe something really important. I think most of the time I save this for like a really dangerous artifact that my opponent plays. But I think if I'm ever playing red, I always put Abrade in. Abrade is a pretty decent card, but I always save it for someone's artifact. Shieldred's Edict is another 4-sack outlet, so to speak. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. What's quite good about this is like the non-token creature is quite important. Most of the time I think I'll probably end up choosing that, because if someone has tokens out, they'll only end up sacking a token. But with the Edict here, I would choose a top one, and they've got no choice but to sacrifice a decent card that they have on the battlefield. Innocent Blood, each player sacrifices a creature, again. And then Molten Collapse, if I descended, I get to choose both of these, which will be most likely, I like to think. So it's not too bad. What does it do again? Destroy target creature or planeswalker, and destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent, mana value 1 or less. So yeah. And then this is actually the only other things where I can target removal, so to speak. So I need to add more, because this is where I was lacking. So I think this here is the only spell, through my own, I don't know, naivety, I guess, you know, I wasn't paying attention too much. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Severely lacked like some serious target interaction. I need to add more. So I think I will go through some of the wild cards, and I'll most likely be adding 2 or 3 instances or sorceries where I can target remove something with my opponents, because I was severely lacking. What was pretty annoying is like the pod was lacking. Like one guy has really cool cards out and no one could remove it, and I'm like, dang, really? 3 of us couldn't remove cards? So definitely want to add some more. So 1 instant removal spell is piss poor. Destroy target creature, discard a card, pay for your life. So obviously I'd always just choose to discard the card to trigger my commander. And Vandal Blast, destroy a target artifact you don't control, or overload it for each artifact you don't control. So that's not too bad. Definitely, I guess, you know, I'm not a pro when it comes to building decks. The way I build them is I have the idea, I do a bit of research about what cards would work, and then I get a collection of cards and go with a gimmick or a theme, and then just build on that, so to speak. But I'm not perfect. I'm not super perfect or professional or great when it comes to deck building. So things get missed out, and I think removal spells is one of those things that gets missed out. Considering black is my favorite, I thought I would have added a lot more removal spells. So yeah, so we got a wad of creatures. I need creatures, or as many creatures as I can get, I guess, so to speak, because obviously I'm going to want to be sacrificing most of these. Some of them have the descend ability. Quite like this little, I can't pronounce it, Stella, I can't pronounce it, Stalakite, the Stalker. I'm just going to call it the Stalker because Bun saying that, I honestly can't say that word. That word right there is impossible to say. Yeah, so it has Menace, and whenever I descend, put 1 more counter on it, so that's not too bad. Plus, I get to sacrifice it, and the target creature gets -X/-X to the end of turn, where X is its power. So if I can make that big, the Menace is really helpful at punishing my opponents if I do decide to attack, and just in case someone has something even better, and it's like, say, for example, a 6/6 that can do God knows what, I could just sacrifice that, and if it was like a 7/7, give it -7/-7, especially to overcome something like Indestructible. So that could be quite good. Quite like the look of that. Priest of the Forgotten Gods has a little bit of draw abilities. Sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. And I add 2 mana and draw a card. I thought, seeing as I'm sacrificing things, there seems like quite a lot of benefit from that. The Fleshbag Marauder. So this is this one. I actually really like this card. So yeah, so this is one here. When it's the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. I'll always choose to target the Marauder and sacrifice itself to its own ability. But yeah, a Phyrexian Obliterator. So this is a nice little 5/5. You know, if I can get it out, I don't know, 4 black. I don't know. I feel like this is a bit circumstantial, but I thought, considering like it forces people to sacrifice things, and that is kind of the theme, I quite like the look of it. I've actually got 4 copies of this bad boy, and I've not had a chance to really use it. So I think out of spite, I've put him in there because I just want to use him. I want to be like, I will use the Obliterator one day, like just for the love of God. I want to put him in a deck and play with it. So that might have been the reason why he's in there. So out of stubbornness, he's in there. Mayhem Devil, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, deals 1 damage to any target, so that's not too bad. The Whispering one, this is another proxy. I need to get hold of the original of this. Actually, my girlfriend has this card, and I have asked her very nicely if I could have it. She's like, nope. So I need to like do something really sweet for her to try and see if I can get the card off of her or something. so yeah, it goes. But 6/6 with Swamp Walk, Graveyard Recursion, and Force Sack on my opponents. Huge card. But it costs 7 mana, so he's in there. Desecration Demon. So this one, again, it kind of gives my opponent a choice. I kind of like the idea, like, say, for example, with my commander, it gives them a choice to either discard or sacrifice or take 3 damage. This one does the same thing. So at the beginning of each combat, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If that player does, you tap it and put a 1/1 counter on it. So again, just it thins the herd out, it forces them to make a decision and potentially make my creature really big, so I quite like that. The Starving Revenant has the Surveil on there to trigger my Descend ability. Descend 8 as well, and whenever you draw a card, if there's 8 or more permanent cards in my graveyard, each opponent loses a life and they gain a life. So a little bit of ping damage, so to speak. Potential I get to draw a card and lose 3 life if the Surveil is really good. So I could maybe do 1 in the graveyard, 1 on top, and then draw that card, lose 3 life, trigger my commander. So I feel like this is a pretty decent card. 4/4, not bad. Here's Tigrid. I sincerely doubt she would ever see play, to be fair. Like, as soon as I play it, I'd be surprised if she survives a rotation. Like, I would need to like make sure I have the mana available to either A, maybe try and protect her, or immediately return her to the battlefield through Graveyard Recursion or something, because I feel like as soon as I play Tigrid, she's gone. Someone's going to do something with that. So yeah, so it's not too bad, but everyone knows what she does. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Huge, considering I'm doing a lot of force sacking and a lot of force discard. Huge card, but I'd be surprised if she sees the light of day. So Conrad the Grim, whenever a creature dies or put into the graveyard or leaves the graveyard, 1 damage to each opponent. So that's a big card considering a lot of graveyard stuff is happening. That's not too bad, especially with, say, for example, when if someone has a really big graveyard and I play what was it, the Lantern, because I've got the Bokija Bog as well, where when it comes into play you exile opponent's graveyard. Now if someone's got like 20 cards in their graveyard and I exile it, that's pretty big. Oh, there you go, the Soul Guide Lantern. So yeah, so potentially exile each opponent's graveyard, so whenever another creature dies, so if there's like, you know, say between three of my opponents, they have like 20 creatures in them each, that's 20 life each to each opponent, so that's pretty big. So potential little, you know, synergy there. I thought that was quite good. Plus I like Sir Conrad. I've got him a couple, I think, in 1 or 2 of my other decks as well. I think he's quite good. Chupacabra Echo, depending on, was it, when the Chupacabra enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent control gets X, -X, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So again, potentially I'll have a big graveyard, and so I could like minus something pretty big, again, to overcome that indestructible. I quite like the look of this one because she creates. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to go like a spell slinger way of doing this, like with the instant and sorceries, because that spell will gain Death Touch or Lifelink, or I get to create a 2/2, and when it dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So potentially to spam out lots of these little things. Like if anything, I was tempted to make her a commander, my commander. To be fair, I wouldn't mind making her a commander either, but he won me over because he's only 2 mana. And you know, with my last video when I did Jorah, she was only a red and blue. And I kind of like the idea of having like these 2 costing commanders. So I might try and do my next video. I'm going to try and make it 2 costing again if I can. So yeah, I don't know what it is. 2 costing commanders, I feel like it makes things interesting. But yeah, so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go spell slinger, so to speak, and have lots of instants and sorceries, is to trigger this as many times as possible. I don't know. I get the feeling for this to be the commander, having lots of, going spell slinger is not the way forward. I'm not too sure. This one's a bit of a maybe card, so to speak. So whenever you attack, I don't plan on attacking too much, but when you do, you may discard a card. And if you do discard a card, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature, gains trample until the end of turn. So triggers him, get a 1/1, draw a card. Sorry, not draw a card. You discard a card, put a 1/1 counter on, and then you get to exile the top card of your library, play it until the end of your next end step. Meh, I don't know. This one is going in the maybe. It could be good. I'm not too sure. I just don't think I plan on attacking a lot against my opponents. I'm planning on kind of draining them for life. I think that's the more of the purpose behind this deck, is drain for life, or deal damage here and there, and find ways of increasing that damage through other means. Attacking is not going to be the big thing, so I might take that out. That might have to go in the maybe pile. Can't pronounce this. The deepest might. How do you mean? Ogier? Is it O'Here or Ogier? And Axonil. I don't know. The deepest might. So if a red source would deal the amount of non-combat damage less than to its power, so say for example he deals 3, because it's 3 and it's less than this creature's power, if he's on the battlefield with my commander, the trigger does 4 damage instead of 3, if that's how I'm reading that correctly, which I think is quite good. So again, another outlet to try and maximize the damage that this would deal. That's the idea behind the deck, so to speak. So he's in there basically for that reason. Plus he's a god and turns into a land, and I get to return him later. Krenko Mob Boss. So, obviously there's a fair few goblins in this deck. And I thought, considering there's a couple of goblins, tap him, put more goblins on the battlefield, create a bit of an army, so to speak, and then use them for sack outlets if I need to. Or blockers, you need blockers. Better to block with tokens rather than creatures I actually need. This one is more for like sacking purposes, so you may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or exile. So if I do sack him for an additional benefit, I can cast him, from the graveyard onto the battlefield, sack him again to do something, and at least, constantly trigger my commander thanks to him. So that's the other reason behind that. Plus he's a goblin as well. So Oliphant was on here only because of the 1 costing mountain cycling. It is a 6/4, maybe late game if I don't need to search for a land. I could play it, and it's a 6/4 with trample. Again, I don't plan on attacking, but you just never know. It was more to just discard the card to trigger him, and I get to search for a land. Rankle the Master of Pranks, he's in here because I get to force sack and discard things. Card draw as well doesn't seem too bad. So yeah, that's the reason why he's in there. A little bit of graveyard recursion with the Cadaver Imp. So the idea is to have him come in, return something, use him to then sack him for another ability. If I cast a spell I need to sack something, I'd probably choose him once he's done his ETB effect. Never know, I might find a way of returning him back and then replaying him, return something else back. Yeah, so a little bit of synergy, a little bit of combo, so to speak, with some of the cards that I have. The Young Pyromancer, so yeah, again, this one might have to be a maybe one, because again, I wanted to go with that Spell Slinger, instants and sorceries, create a 1/1. Again, with those 1/1s, I get to sack them or whatever, for whatever purposes and stuff. So I'm a bit, yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. Maybe pole. We'll put it in maybe pole. Magnus of the Wheel, so you sacrifice him, each player discards a hand and draws 7 cards. I mean, have him out, and if Tear Grid was out at the same time, and I triggered this, like I would get 7 permanents like onto the battlefield, which is kind of big. Again, with the Graveyard Recursion, if I could keep that going, that was the reason why he was in there, so to speak. When he enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card again to trigger the Descend with my commander. Another Descend trigger with a Solemn of Solomon I can't pronounce it. Simulacrum. I don't have to. Dennis, you're gonna have to give me a ding or an if I got that right. But yeah, again, enters land, sack it, now gets draw. So huge benefits. Gutter Snipe again, instance of sorceries, deal 2 damage to each opponent. That was kind of like the idea behind it. So yeah, I'm not too sure. He might end up going. I might have to trade him in for like a removal spell. I'd rather have something like that. The Pilferer, when he dies, create a treasure token. He's literally in here to be played really early and then use him to sack. I get sack him, getting a benefit, get a treasure, and Yonko effect as well. I can do that as well because if I'm not mistaken, at the end you sacrifice him, but it does only create the token copies. But I do get to, if I had like 3 opponents, create 3 treasure tokens. So I think it's still good that he's in there. So this one's a little bit more of a wild as well. So with the Spider Queen, whenever a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter on her. Considering I'm making some tokens and other creatures and potentially going to be losing them through the sack outlet and the descends that I want to trigger, I felt like it might be a good idea to put her in here because I would hopefully maybe get to her emblem fairly quickly. In retrospect, I'm not too sure. If I'm doing all this sacrificing, could I get there? This kind of needs to be tested. So I want to put her in there just to see if she could be like an easy trigger to get her ultimate off. Could be good, I don't know. If a sorcerer you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent that opponent controls, it deals double that. It's pretty much the reason why I put that in here, a double chance. This is non-combat damage, 6 damage instead. Seems quite good. It's a 5/4 as well for 4 mana. And then you get to put indestructible counters on him, just in case. Quite like the idea of him. He's in there with that. At the beginning of your instep, if you descend it, put 1 more counter. So it's basically the other goblin, except you can't minus something with it. But I thought, yeah, another goblin. More descend opportunities, more 1/1s, potential big creature, you never know. An Enduri, Master of the Revue, I think that's pronounced. Whenever you sacrifice a opponent, put a 1/1 counter on him. And when he dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So potential, get a big creature, and then sack him, do like 10 damage to a player, maybe win the game, I don't know. Ward, sacrifice a creature. Again, if someone wants to target this with a Vein Ripper, it forces them to sacrifice something, and whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life, again 2 life. Yeah, I thought it was a good idea. Quite expensive though. I don't know. He might go. I'm not too sure. The Indulgent Tormentor. Okay, so at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless an opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. So you either let me have the card draw, or you have to, hurt yourself in some way to prevent me from doing that. That was the idea behind that. I quite like that idea. And the Enterprising Scallywag, to finish it off with the creatures, at the beginning of your instep, if you descended, which most likely I will do, I create a treasure token. And treasure tokens are good. So that's basically the deck. It seems a little naughty. I think in hindsight, so to speak, there's a few circumstantial cards in there that probably don't belong in there. I'm not too sure. I need to maybe play a few more games and try and figure that out. But through the gameplay that I have done, I do know one thing for certain, and that is to add some removal spells. I've got a couple here that I'm thinking of adding, like say for example, Go for the Throat. Nice cheap instant, destroy non-artifact creature. Lash of the Balrog I think I was doing as well because it would also trigger my Descend. So I can pay 1 black, sacrifice something, destroy a creature, trigger Descend, then they got to sacrifice something or discard a card or lose life as well. So that's not too bad. These two I was thinking of adding, just to go off topic a little bit, because I really wanted to maybe go with the Spell Slinger way of doing things. I was so tempted to add these in here, but I'm not too sure. That might have to go for another deck. I might have to maybe do another Rakdos deck or something, or maybe just build another one. Have two Zoyowa commanders, and one that's more focused on sacrificing, and one that's like a spell slinger or something. I don't know. I might have to make another deck of these. So yeah, so two removals. I was thinking of adding maybe some more card draw as well. I was thinking of adding Deadly Dispute and Read the Bones. And I wasn't too sure about this one as well. The Great Door, Matt Zalantil.
Nope.
Frick, these names are terrible. The Great Door. So draw a card, discard a card. Again, triggers the Descend ability. You get to transform it into a land and add X mana of any one color. So that could be potentially good. I'm not too sure because I thought maybe with the fair bit of graveyard recursion, it might not be as good as it sounds. These lands I was thinking of adding because I might take a couple of these little flavor lands out just to like give me something, just some regular lands so I've got something to play, because having all these tap lands and all these other fancy lands and all these sacrifice lands, they seem quite good. I think it just might be best if I don't think I got Evolving Wilds in there, so I might put that in there, but I think it just might be best if I took maybe 2 cards out and added, or 3 cards out and added these 3 in, just for a bit of simplicity. I'm not too sure, so yeah, maybe food for thought, I guess, but I think definitely I will be adding these 4 in for sure. Can't go wrong with card draw, I guess, and maybe a couple of more. I might have to root around for another removal spell actually. I can't just be bombing around with 3 removal spells, because it definitely showed that was like the big problem. Because I think I've played with this deck maybe 3 or 4 times, and in each game there was a scenario where someone needed to remove a threat, and no one could do it. Like, even though this was like a brand new deck, and everyone else had a deck that was quite fairly consistent, definitely much better than my deck, and they didn't have an answer either. So I think it's definitely showed me the light, so to speak, and be like, dude, you need removal. So I think what I might do is maybe add 3 removal spells to it, and then give it another game and see how it goes, really, and just test out its consistency, so to speak. So that's how I like to test these decks. Build a deck initially with the idea, play a few games, and just work out the kinks. What's wrong with it? I'm not drawing cards. Okay, let's add card draw. I'm playing a game and people have really big scary creatures, but I never have an answer for it. What do I need? Removal, most likely. So let's do that. So I want to try and keep true to the actual commander descend mechanic first and foremost, and then maybe just try and, as time goes on, maybe see if as I come across cards that would benefit from the descend. Like if someone was to sacrifice something, I want to benefit from it. Tear Grid is a good example from that, and I need other cards. It would be nice to maybe get some other cards similar to Tear Grid, where if someone was to sacrifice or discard something, I gain a benefit in some kind. Like I draw a card whenever an opponent discards a card, I draw a card. That'd be really cool, like an enchantment like that. I don't know if there is an enchantment like that. Dennis, if there is, like maybe pop one up. But I can't think of anything at the moment because I'm not super good with this kind of stuff. So that's my deck, my new deck. Zoyowa, the Lava Tongue. There you go, little goblin guy. Again, 2 costing commanders. I like my little 2 costing commanders. I think they're quite good. Let me know in the comments. What did you think of this? Have you made a deck with this commander? If so, share your list or something. Let me know which direction you took him. Like, did you like the idea of maybe going Spellslinger, or maybe heavy enchantments that boost the damage that he could do, or have you gone something similar and added forcible sack outlets for your opponents, and punishing them in that way? That'd be quite interesting to see if anyone else has made this deck and what direction they decided to take it. Leave a comment. Leave a like as well. You have to forgive my hands. I've got these scratches on my hands because my girlfriend has got a parrot, a new bird, a baby bird, and his talons are growing really, really sharp. And whenever you handle him, he scratches the hell out of your hands. So if you're wondering what these marks are on my hands, it's the bloody parrot. Charlie, his name is. It's a cute little bird, but God, his talons are really sharp. Leave a comment and Leave a like. Let me know what you think. Any ideas? Like, what could you do better? Like, if you looked at this and saw those cards, what would you take out? Like, 5 cards, what would you take out, and what would you put in just to make it instantly better? So yeah, it'd be interesting to know your thoughts. Coming forward, I'm not too sure what we're going to be doing forward at the moment. Like with me and Dennis, you know, we're working quite a lot and we're mega busy. So we're going to have to try and play it a little bit by ear. But we're going to try and do the usual, do some booster pack openings. Dennis will no doubt will have another video with his 32 series that he's trying to release coming up soon as well. So something to look forward to. All right, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you because this is like a very long video and I'm no doubt you're all bored of my voice. So guys, have a good one.